So it is recording. Go ahead, Robert.
I want to thank all of you for participating in this evening's event. We are in a critical time of the organization, and organizing new units is of the utmost importance. So your involvement here just helps magnify our ability to organize new units. And everything we do in organizing a new unit is opportunity for exponential growth. If we can plant the seeds today, our average size unit can, we can easily be serving with 100 new units, 500 to 1,500 new kids in a short period of time. So with that, I guess we can get started with the 12 step, but we have an introductory message from our VP of membership, and then we'll go into the 12 steps of how to organize a new unit. And we'll call on Steve Small, our council commissioner, to kind of share some of the urgency and why we have the call to 100 new units and things of that nature.
Hang on 1 second.
Hi, I'm Tracy Young. I'm the Vice President of Membership for the Boy Scouts of America, Delmarva Council. Thank you for joining us today as we journey towards adding 100 new units to the Delmarva Peninsula. The fact that you're here already speaks to the passion and dedication you have to helping the mission of the organization, which is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetime by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Scout Law. Now, do you remember when you first began your journey with Scouting? Can you look back at the person you were and the person you are? For some of you, you may see yourself as an entirely different person, while others may see you as having validated the core values you already held. But regardless, we all have to admit that we're better for the journey. Scouting is not only making the most of your time that you have right now with your children, it's also helping our young people become stronger by learning the skills and developing the compassion to serve others. In our ever-changing world, we need not apologize for seeking to recruit more young people and families into the scouting world to help them realize their future as they become our leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start to think about the goals that we as individuals can help to serve the greater Delmarva Council by achieving the overall outcome of 100 new units on this peninsula. Let's help others begin their journey. Hi.
I want to go to the screen 3 to the first step, and we'll let Steve jump in so he can jump off.
Great, thanks, Robert. So in normal times, identifying a prospect is a completely different process than we're talking about today. The pandemic and recent trends in our membership have changed the game a little bit. I was talking to Robert some time ago, and I think I had a hand in this 100 unit thing because of it. When this is my second kind of time around as commissioner. In 2012, for my first go around, I dug up the old recharter information, and we were expecting to recharter 340 units. Today, we stand at 184 units submitted online. I know there's a few more units that we hope to get back, but it's nearly 150 units lost in a decade. This year, especially, things have really changed. As you can see from the data that Paul has put on, I took a deep dive into our chartered units. And for the first time in my memory and many people's, we have more Scouts BSA units and youth than we do Cub Scout packs. As all of us know, and I look at the faces and names on the call, know that it takes typically more than one pack to keep units going. In the northern part of our council, packs have choices between which troop the Webelos may go to. In the south, however, it's mostly one unit of each variety in a community. So when we start looking at less packs than troops, then there is a troop that's in danger of being in trouble in a few years. The current, as you watch membership trends and recruitment trends, Rob and I had a little discussion this afternoon. In fact, you still can recruit for Scouts BSA units, and you can. But the line of sight between a kindergarten age child and going through the program takes you through the Cub Scout program into the Scouts BSA program and into the older kid program for that matter. And in many communities, that line of sight is kind of broken. Kevin and I, both on the Wood Badge staff, were discussing over the weekend the vast area that his troop in Chincoteague Island is covering right now. He has people coming from actually Tri-County District down to his place to come to meetings, and there's a big gap. So as we start this first phase of identifying prospects, I think it's important for two things. One, to look for gaps in our communities. There are some large areas that we're not serving at all. And the second thing is looking at our older boy program, or older scout program, Scouts BSA program, and seeing if there is a clear path from Cub Scouts to Scouts BSA. I've asked the commissioning staff to kind of do that, to kind of align the troops and the packs to see where gaps are so they can help the membership teams kind of figure out where they need to start looking. And obviously while you're at a charter partner, you can make sure they have the whole family of units. But I think it's important right now that we support the units that we have, that we try to make sure there's a membership transition path for young scouts to get to units, and that we start there. Obviously, there's going to be units of opportunity that come up over time, but I think in the current situation, looking at the reduction in our membership and our units, that we really need to focus on the units that will support new units that will support our current units. So as you kind of identify these prospects, that's a great place to start. I know that in Sussex, and Mike's on the call, he has already started kind of identifying where historic units were, trying to find where we have willing and able charter partners that for one reason or another the unit doesn't exist anymore. And I'm confident that we can do the same thing in every district. So clearly at one point they had enough youth to support units, and over time that has just eroded. Any other items on this that you want me to cover? You're muted, Robert, so just want to make sure.
I think you hit it on the head. I mean, we have a major need. As you can see, what Steve shared, we had over 150 more units 10 years ago compared to where we are today. And over that 10 years, we have a lot more youth living on this peninsula. So we have our work as an organization cut out for us to do the program and instill the values of the oath and law in these youth to make ethical choice over their lifetime. That is our mission. And if we can do and get more units organized, serve more kids, the communities we live in, our kids are going to grow up in, our great grandkids and grandkids are going to grow up in, are going to be much better and safer locations for all of us. So I've got a vested interest in seeing this organization grow, because I believe in the difference that we all make one scout at a time. The best way we can do that is magnified by creating more service stations and identifying the best places we can focus on putting these service stations, i.e. Cub Scout packs for boys and girls, Scout BSA troop for boys, Scout BSA troop for girls, and even venture crews, Sea Scout ships, or explore posts. there are all opportunities that we can better serve our community with the values of the oath and law. Identifying the prospects. We have identified over 1,000 people or prospects that we have currently been emailing, snail mailing, and with your help, hopefully we can make some phone calls, because as you're aware or may not be aware, we have a pretty nice event coming up on Monday that is going to help us sort of make the sale for many of these organizations and hopefully sell them on why they need to partner with us to deliver the scouting program. For those of you who aren't aware, I'm referring to our event Monday night with Shane Victorino. We have several other guest speakers on there that will help us hopefully sell the organization to new charter partners and existing charter partners to hopefully get the full family of scouting. You know, we have our first female Eagle Scout that's on that agenda that's going to share her perspective and why she joined the Boy Scouts of America and why she felt it was important to become an Eagle Scout versus some of the other programs out there. We have one of our own phenomenal Eagle Scouts, Malin Dyer, that's also going to be on that program. He's going to share what he's gotten out of scouting. He's a scholar athlete, going to play college football, lodge chief, section chief. I mean, I'd love for him to be my son. That's just an amazing young man, but phenomenal. And then we have Matt Peters, helping us from the Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center, talking about how, as a chartered organization, how they benefit in chartering a unit through the service and also being able to get their brand and their organization out into the community. And we have Cliff Berg, who's the incoming district governor for the Rotary. He's going to be a part of the agenda, as well as Pat Press, who's our council president and director for HR, managing director for Chase. So we got pretty nice lineup. All happen to be Eagle Scouts. So it's kind of nice. And myself as well have a part of the program Monday night. And there's some question and answers. So this is something that obviously is catered to new unit potential prospects. But if you have families out there that could use an uplifting message, they're not sure about scouting. I mean, we're going to hear from two-time World Series champion Shane Victorino, how he was able to letter in sports growing up and still get his Eagle Scout. So we have a lot of our families that are dropping out because they're too busy or their kids are playing sports. You know, we're getting somebody who is a World Series champion baseball player who was able to do it. And I think we'll share the message that if he was able to do it, that we can get other youth to be able to still get their Eagle Scout as they do that. So so that's kind of identifying the prospect. Paul, if it's okay, can I jump ahead to the other steps?
Yes.
So skipping on making the sales call, I'm going to let Paul follow on that one. The ones that, I mean, that's really important, but the ones that I'm most excited and passionate about, because the sales call is happening on that event, that Shane Victorino event. A lot of the features in there is going to be focused on the sales call. The only lacking part we have on that event is closing the sale, and we'll see how we can engage in that. The most important one here is organizing committee meets. And whether you're a commissioner and you're doing unit leader inventories and you find vacancies that you have to fill for your leadership, organizing committee is probably the most important thing we need to do and understand so that we can get the program and the best leadership available recruited. So the organizing committee, basically, we go through and we orient them by understanding the aims and methods of scouting, know the steps to organizing a unit, the 12 steps that you'll see again later, familiar with program planning. And some of that is follow your most successful unit, copy their program, and tailor it to the new unit that's being organized. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. Understand the process for selecting leaders, which I'm going to go through in detail. Show them the training opportunities and familiarize them with BSA materials for support. So recruiting key leaders. Brainstorm. What you're going to do is the organizing committee is going to meet. We break out a whiteboard, or if it's in a virtual platform, we can share on Zoom, or we could share our screen, or everybody could gain access to the same Google Sheet. And we're going to start first by putting a list of as many prospective leaders that could help us start this unit. So any member of the organization, whether it's the yacht club, the church, you name it, we want to go through a list of all the potential people that could be a good leader. After we brainstormed all the leaders, ideally we have the charter organizational representative that's been appointed by the organization on this organizing committee, because we need their buy-in and support, because they need to understand that the leaders that we approve or select is their leaders and that they're also approving and selecting as well. So we're going to select people to make the ask. We've now got a list of 25, 30, 40 names on a whiteboard. We're going to look at the job description of the key positions we need to fill, whether it's the Cub Master, the Scout Master, the committee chair, treasurer, secretary. We're going to look at the job description, and we're going to match the job description to the volunteers that we've identified. And we're going to evaluate, okay, if I had to pick my dream team scout unit, who's my number one Scoutmaster on this pool of eligible draftees? Who are we going to draft to our scout team on this eligible pool of, say, 50 names that we've come up with? Who's my first round pick Scoutmaster, second round, third round, fourth, fifth round pick Scoutmaster? Same thing with committee chair, treasurer, secretary, you name it, assistant Scoutmaster. Once we've made those picks, we are now going to identify who is the best person on this selection committee to help us make this ask. Most influential person needs to make the ask, and they need to be coached on how to make that ask. The last thing we want to do is have them just call the person and say, hey, Hillary, I'm calling you because we want you to be our scout leader. Can we come and visit with you next week? Hillary's back of her mind is already thinking the million reasons why she can't be the Scoutmaster over that 1 week period. We want to coach whoever's going to make the call to almost use this script to the point. Hi, Hillary, thank you for taking my call. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you and your husband to discuss something of significant importance to the youth in our community and our church. Would this Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday night work in your schedule? And notice I give 3 different dates and times for them to pick. And obviously those 3 different dates and times were already vetted with the members on the selection committee that's going to be a part of the recruitment team. The influential person, a scouter that knows the program that can help answer questions. So hopefully they pick one of those 3 dates. They may also very well come back and say, Hillary might come back and say, well, Robert, what is this about? I don't want to commit to a meeting. I don't know what this is about. The response we want to coach the person making that call is, Hillary, like I shared with you, this is something that is so important and significant that it's too important for me to visit with you over the phone. I'd really want to visit with you in person or over Zoom with your husband. It's too important to discuss over the phone. And you're just setting the bar that, like, this is too important. Like, you just don't want to share some important news over the phone. You want to get face-to-face in a Zoom, or obviously in person is even better, but given the circumstance and the environment, Zoom can work. You're still somewhat face-to-face. We pick the night, we go in and we make the ask. The people who goes in attendance, we want to make sure that we're with their spouse, person of influence, and knowledgeable scouter. We thank them for allowing us to meet. Again, we sit in a circle as best we can so that we're not in an intimidating thing where people are behind a desk or something like that. Person of influence, again, scripted and practiced. Hillary, thank you for allowing us this time to visit about this important issue that I shared with you. And this is so important. The church leadership, our board, has agreed and committed to partner with the Boy Scouts of America in providing scouting as a program for our church and our members outside the church. We see the challenges going on in our society. We can no longer sit idly by. We believe that children are our future and see no better way to help shape that future than working with the youth. We put together a selection committee made up of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Who's the leaders in the church that was on that committee? We want to be able to share that, hey, your name was not just randomly picked out of a hat, that we actually had a selection committee of some of the most influential people in the church. We evaluated every member in our church and the community that we know of to make sure that we could recruit the best person for this job. That's how important this is. And our selection committee unanimously approved and agreed that Hillary, we think you're the best person to be the Cub Master or Scout Master or whatever role we're recruiting. Can we count on you to help us with this program to be our Scout Master as we get this program started? Now, guys, I don't know about you, but if somebody took the time and put a special selection committee and evaluated the members of their congregation and the community, that's a tough no. You know, but the reality, it could still get a no. And if they say no, that's fine. Then we go to prospect number 2. But how flattering is that as well for you to get asked in that fashion, to know that your name wasn't just picked out of a hat, and to also have your spouse there to hear that, you know, we think this highly and we need your spouse's support if we're going to get this off the ground, because the youth is that important. And that's why we need to meet in person. I mean, we're setting the stage and hopefully getting them to realize that's how important this is. As we go into that meeting, we also have to be prepared to handle the objections and answer questions. The prospect may need some time to think about it. Say, hey, you know what? I've got a lot on my plate. You know, let me think about this. Can I get back to you in a week? Yes, we'll follow up with you in a week. And if he says no, as soon as he says no, we've got to send out a mass email back to our selection committee, our organizing committee, to say, hey, Hillary said no. We now got to go to prospect number 2. So who's the best person to make the ask? That would have already been pre-assigned in that organizing committee. Okay, Kevin, can you call on Grace and schedule the meeting? These are the next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that we're available, the rest of the team that's going to go and do the recruitment. And so now Kevin will hopefully go out and reach out to Grace and schedule that meeting and do the same type of scripted call, where we're not going to show our hand and tell her what we're recruiting them for or what this is about, because it's so important. We need to meet in person. So I feel very strongly on how we go about identifying and recruiting the right person. The leadership is the most important thing in our unit at all levels of our organization. We will rise or fall and serve the appropriate number of youth based on the quality of leaders we identify, recruit, and train. And this is so important to me and all of you. That's why you're here, to make sure we get the best people possible. So understanding this step number 6, identifying and recruiting the leaders, to me is the most valid, important part, because if we get the best leaders possible, for those of you that are commissioners, those leaders will never let you down in recharter or whatnot, because that's just, I mean, we're not just randomly picking the people that are just going to get by. We're picking the best and recruiting and providing them the training. And that's what this is about. And that's how we can also help existing units that are struggling, provide them an influx of potential new leaders if we commit to this process and repartner with the chartered organization in identifying and recruiting leaders, so that we continue to maintain that relationship with the charter organization. Otherwise, we tend to stray further and further away from the charter organization, where they're just giving us a meeting space and there is no relationship. But any questions for me on step 6 or step 5? So if no questions for me on step 5 or step 6, I'm going to turn the program back over to Paul to help walk through steps 2, 3, and 4, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which some of those are a lot faster to go through. The next most important part, in my opinion, is making the sale. A lot of that we're going to cover in that Shane Victorino event. So we need help to get as many bodies, as many eyes and ears to the Shane Victorino event on Monday night, so that they can hear the message and hear the testimonies from our phenomenal examples of our program between our 2 youth speakers, and then have our nice little celebrity speaker with Shane Victorino. We're also going to throw a nice little incentive for the first unit that gets organized from that event. So if you have some units in your district that you're working on to get organized, there's going to be a nice little carrot for the first unit to get organized because of this event. And there's going to be some criteria to meet, but obviously the first unit that gets organized meeting that criteria is going to get a nice little recognition piece for those scouts and scouters in that unit. So appreciate you guys for being on tonight. I apologize, we've had to skip through the program a little bit, but I've got to excuse myself because I get to jump onto a not so exciting bankruptcy meeting with our national organization at this time. But again, thank you for what you guys are doing. Paul, thank you for taking on this training, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thanks, Robert. So we're going to jump back to the beginning. So wanted to make it very clear, I know Robert and Steve talked a little bit about some of the steps already, but wanted just to recap. There are 12 steps to starting a new unit. And if you've been a part of starting a new unit before, I know a lot of people on the phone call are either in a unit or have been a part of a unit and not sure if you've started one. But it does take all 12 steps to get a unit started. And one thing that we've probably done recently that we shouldn't have been doing is skipping a lot of those steps or just ignoring those steps altogether. So that's what this training is all about, is making sure everybody knows that what the 12 steps are and that there are 12 steps to starting a new unit. So as you can see, there are listed out. Some are easier than others. Some are not so easy. I was talking to a staff member earlier, and with any campaign, whether it's starting a new unit, any campaign that we do, recruitment campaign, whatever it is, it always seems like the first 90% takes about the same amount of time as the last 10%. So as we go through this presentation, you're going to see the first 90% is going to take, I don't say a lot of time, but it will take some effort. And then the last 10% is probably going to take just as much effort to get the unit actually off the ground and running. So we've already talked about, last thing, I know a couple of new people have jumped on since we've started. This is being recorded to be put on YouTube later, so we can refer back to this training as we get more new unit organizers or new unit commissioners, or if you need to just take a look back. So this is being recorded. Also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We will get to them towards the end, as well as there's several staff members on the phone call who might be able to answer some of those questions as we go through this training. So just wanted to let everybody know. But Steve Small talked about step one. Wanted to let y'all know about the resources we also have. Every district executive has resources of what our youth market looks like. They've mapped out their units. So most all districts, if not all, have a Google map representing their district, showing where the Cub Scout packs are, where the Boy Scout troops for boys and troops for girls are. So you can see which communities are not being served in your districts. And there's plenty other, national office has several resources as well. So if you're curious, if you're not sure, don't hesitate to reach out. We can help you get that. Step two, this one is step two and step three kind of go together. Sometimes they go directly back to back, but approaching the prospect is not so much making the sales call. It is literally just approaching the prospect, trying to talk to somebody in the charter organization to set up the meeting to make the sales call. It's trying to decide if this charter organization is going to be a good fit with our program. So you want to ask a lot of open-ended questions, those fact-finding questions that you can see here, other ones that you may have. But again, this is, we're not trying to go in there and make the sale immediately like, hey, we're the Boy Scouts of America and you should partner with us. It's what's your mission? What are your goals in the community? And see if it's a good fit. If it turns out to be, if they're excited about it, then move on to step three. If they're a little bit hesitant, again, we have plenty of resources on why scouting is the right program for their organization, whether it's a church, whether it's a civic service club, whether it's a school, whatever it may be, we have plenty of resources to help with that. So that's the other thing I want to mention. If we do talk about churches, as you know, most of our chartered organizations are churches, but we are talking about all organizations, civic service clubs, schools, the PTA groups, as well as our religious organizations. So as we go into step two, again, approaching the prospect. If we already know the prospect is there, if we've already talked to them, or if you've already talked to a pastor or a member of the organization, they said, yes, we want scouts, we just need somebody to come talk to us, then step two is pretty easy. And that moves us right into step three. Step three is actually making the sales call, and that is making the ask to partner with the Boy Scouts of America, to partner with our program. And remember, when we're starting units, we're not just trying to find a location to recruit kids to go to. We are trying to build a partnership with this organization. We want to build together and move forward as two organizations, making the community a better place. And that's what we have to keep in mind. So often do we just look for hey, we need a place to meet. So this place is big, let's go check it out. So let's make sure we're actually trying to partner with the organization to move better together and to affect our community. So when making the sales call, you want to have the what we know as the institutional head, but the head person of that organization, whether it's the pastor of a church, whether it's the exalted ruler, grand master, president, whatever the title is, we want to make sure that we have the person who can make the decisions. And sometimes they'll even ask you to come to one of their board meetings and just make the ask to the entire board right then and there. And we need to be prepared to do that. So when you're talking to the charter organizations, the one thing that you want to do when you first get there is try to relax when you're talking to the charter organization. Have those conversations of just, what do you do outside of this? If it's community civic service, what are your hobbies? Things like that. Just kind of those icebreakers to get to know the people a little bit better, to kind of build that fellowship with them before the actual meeting starts. Try and get, if it is just a meeting with you and another volunteer, try and get the institutional head, as we call it, the president, pastor, whoever it may be, out from behind their desk. Get them into a room with I'll say a round table or whatever it may be. Try and, I'll say, even the playing field. That way you can actually again get them out of there where they're used to. It kind of helps with just their emotions at that point. If in the fact finding that you did when you're approaching the sales calls, if they did list community goals and goals that they want to see, make sure you address those when you're talking to them about adopting the program. Make sure you let them know what scouting can do to help achieve those goals that they may have. And a lot of the goals that we currently have for our religious institutions is we want more families in the door. And that's where scouting can really come in handy, or say come in handy, can come in as a big factor, as a way to get more families in the door. And again, it's that partnership with the church. It's not so much of you join our pack, you have to be a member of this church, but it's more of just getting that family introduced. As we know, a lot of our families just aren't introduced to the church as previous generations. Again, make sure you talk about all the concerns. Be ready before you go into the meeting. If you think they're going to have questions about some things, make sure you're prepared to answer, have answers. Go ahead and write those answers down. So right now with the bankruptcy, that's probably going to be one of the first questions they ask. So make sure you have that answer ready to go. Have it written down. If you've already talked about it enough, make sure you're ready to tell the organization what that is, because that's that confidence that they see. They know that you're answering the question truthfully, as well as they know that we've already had this question. Make sure you talk about all the benefits of scouting, purposes of scouting, our character development, citizenship training, our aims and methods, which so many of you know. Again, if you have questions about any of that, or you need those resources, do not hesitate to reach out to your local district executive, reach out to myself, our council office. We can give you those resources. One of the big things to remind the organization about is our general liability insurance that we provide. So the church will not be, they will be covered, the church as well as the members of the scouting organizations. And then when you're closing the sale, make sure you're also establishing deadlines. because that's when you're closing sale. That's one of the big things is make sure if they say yes, we have our board meeting in 2 weeks. We need to talk about it at our board meeting. Make sure you go ahead and let them or talk to them and say, hey, is it okay if I reach out to you in 2.5, 3 weeks, or will you reach out to me right after? And the one thing is if you leave the ball in their court, they may not reach back out to you. That's why you want to set those deadlines, set those dates. So if you say, yeah, please reach out to me next Tuesday. If you say, please reach out to me by next Tuesday, they will know if they don't reach out to you by next Tuesday that you will follow up with them. So that way, establish those deadlines early on because that will keep the momentum going of starting a new unit. As we know, momentum is huge. So once you get rolling, once you get steps 1, 2, 3, get into 4, 5, and 6, as that momentum's building, keep it going. If you put a pause on it and say, well, summer's coming, so let's wait 2 or 3 months before we revisit this, you are going to lose that momentum, and it's going to be very hard to get it built back up. So again, make sure you establish those deadlines early on, especially when it comes to adopting the program. The very last thing, so just let you know, the sale is actually the annual charter agreement. They will, if they say yes, we want to have a scouting unit here. Make sure before you leave, you give that institutional head, that pastor, that president, that exalted ruler, the annual charter agreement, because that is what they'll have to sign. That is their contract, if you will, with us saying, yes, we want a charter unit and we agree to all these things on the annual charter agreement. And make sure you're able to talk about the annual charter agreement with, these are the things that the council agrees to provide to the unit. If you are in front of the board, if you are meeting with somebody, make sure you do end on time, as we all are used to, but we don't want to be, is some scouting meetings like to run over a little bit. It happens, but make sure when you're meeting with a potential charter organization, if you have a meeting from 3 to 4 o'clock, make sure you're ending before 4 o'clock or right at 4. End on time, that's just good business. And then again, when before you leave, make sure you have those deadlines set. The next deadline should be appointing the charter organization and appointing the organizing committee. So I look forward to reaching out to you next week to talk to you about who those 3 people are that you want to be on your organizing committee, who that person you want to be the charter organization, as well as picking up the annual charter agreement. So once you get into make the sales call, the next step is that they adopt the program. If they don't adopt the program, hopefully we know why at that point, but we do want to keep a record of that. So if you do talk to a charter organization and they say, no, we don't want to be involved with scouts right now, and they give a reason, please let us know. We do keep track of that. Because in 4, 5, 6, 10 years, they might get a new person, they might have a new board. And we want to make sure we're still able to talk to them because they may be the perfect charter organization, or they may be the only organization in a small community that we want to partner with. So if you do talk to somebody, please let us know. But yeah. So moving on, organization adopts a program. Again, this should be one of the shorter steps. Once they say yes, get that charter organization rep and ask who their organizing committee is going to be. I know Robert talked about the organizing committee and how to recruit leaders. One thing that we've done all too often before is this is the step that gets skipped the most is the organizing committee. We usually tell charter organizations that once we recruit the youth, we'll recruit the parents of the youth to be the leaders. And we've already put ourselves behind. So this is the step that we really need to focus in on of that organization committee. Because if the organization has is appointing the scoutmaster, the committee chair, the committee members, they have buy-in at that point. They don't just have buy-in of, yes, scouts meet in our building. that we gave them the basement, so we never see them. They have buy-in that their unit is their unit. The charter organization owns that unit and wants to see it grow. It's the best way to get that sustainability, because anytime a scoutmaster says, hey, this is going to be my last year, my son or daughter is getting ready to get their eagle, going on to college, and I'm going with them or whatever it may be. We can always fall back to that charter organization if we don't have a succession plan for the scoutmaster and ask for their help. And if they did a nominating committee or organizing committee to start with, they'll be able to do another one to keep the troop going or the pack going. So this, to me, the next step, step 5, getting the organizing committee, is one of the most important steps. It's one of the steps that we have skipped over all too often. And I'm one of those people, so I'll place blame on myself. I'm one of those people who have said, once we get parents or once we get the youth recruited, we'll lock all the parents in a room and decide who's going to be. And that's what really we want to get across with this training, is that is not the way to do it if we want to have sustainable, smart units. We want that unit to be around for the next 20, 30, 50, 100, 150 years. We need to do it the right way to begin with. Same with recruiting the key leaders. The best example I could ever give, if you're in front of a room and you do a shotgun ask, who wants to be the scoutmaster? If you ask just a bunch of new families, it's usually that first hand that goes up is usually not the right person, but it's usually the only person you can get. So we want to make sure we select and recruit the best people to begin with before we start selecting the youth, because it also sets ourselves up for success. And that goes right into step 7. It sets ourselves up for success by getting those leaders involved first. We can then plan the program to begin with. And as we know, youth and families leave our program because, 1, they haven't been contacted, and 2, because it's disorganized. And if we're trying to start a new unit, and by recruiting youth to then recruit adults, to then plan the program, to then figure out a budget, we're backwards. We need to have the leaders on first so we can plan the program, organize it, put a budget together before we recruit the youth. That way, when the new families, the new youth do join, we have a calendar to give them. We have the contact information to give them. We have the fundraising to give them, and summer camp stuff and day camp and everything like that. So we want to make sure that we're able to get those leaders involved first and sit down and go ahead and do the annual program plan. Again, we have resources on top of resources on top of resources on how to plan a program with a budget. Every district executive has access to all of our local council resources, and everybody has access to the national council resources. So if you have questions or you're not sure where to find them, do not hesitate to reach out. We are here to help with that. But with planning the program, I mean, they need to be planning out at least 3 to 6 months for when they get the new youth. But really, they need to be planning out a full year in advance, because if we're starting a unit right now in April, hopefully they can get together and get to summer camp this year. But most people are deciding where to go to summer camp and paying for summer camp in December of the year before. So they need to be planning that out, planning that into their budget. We need to have our summer camp funds raised by December if we're planning on paying the 50% due date for summer camp that summer. Again, we have plenty of resources for it, as well as our outdoor program. I know I saw Ryan on the call earlier. We have beautiful camps, reservations at Rodney and at Henson. And I know they are ready and willing to support any unit, especially if it's a new unit. Bring them out to camp. Let them talk, even if it's just coming out for a day, seeing the property that we have, everything that we have to offer to them. It's open for Cub Scouts and Scouts BSA. Let them come and talk. And again, it is getting them outdoors is the best way. As you can see, get out and scout. It is the #1 retention tool that we have. So step 7, again, this one shouldn't take a lot of effort on your part because this is really the leaders who are helping out. This is also where the commissioners will step in to help them out, as well as training. Our training team can come help with planning their annual program. And that takes me right into step 8 with training the leaders. Again, we want to make sure we have trained leaders before we're actually recruiting the youth. It just makes sense. If the leaders don't know about youth protection, then that first meeting is not going to be very fun. So making sure that our leaders are getting trained, they're taking their youth protection training, leader-specific training. If it is for Cub Scouts, they need a blue trained leader, so we need to make sure that they know when the blue training is so they can go camping. And if it's Scouts VSA, their Scoutmaster needs ITOL. So make sure when we're setting this up that we're not skipping this training, and we don't want to downplay the training as either. We want to make sure that they know the importance of having a trained leader, and not just a trained leader of not just a trained leader of youth protection or just a trained Scoutmaster. We want the entire all the adults to be trained. We want the entire committee, the committee chair, the committee members, the chartered organization representative to be trained. There is training for all those people on my.scouting.org. Very easy to log on and take the training, and they have upgraded so much. From 10 years ago, when I was a brand new executive and I was asked to sit through all those trainings, den leader trainings, and weather hazard trainings and safety afloat, whatever it may be. I sat through all those trainings, and I will tell you they are 100% better than they were from 10 years ago. And they're there for everybody as well. They've simplified them, they've combined them, and they've also made them more entertaining. So please make sure when you're talking to your people, when you're setting up a new unit, that you aren't skipping over the most important step of training the leader. Because this is the best way to make sure it is going to be a sustainable unit. Again, we want to start smart and sustainable units and not try to throw together a unit really quick, because in the past, and again, I'm guilty of this, we had 20 kids show up to a school night event, and we said, we need a unit here. And we went through the process backwards. Some of those units survive, a lot of them don't. Let's make sure we do it correctly this time and get the leaders in place, get them trained, get the program plan, the budget plan before the next step, step 9, recruiting the youth. Recruiting the youth can be, it's a menu of items to select from. So we do have our marketing materials posted on Facebook. We can geofence on Facebook, put yard signs out, flyers. If the schools will let us in, go talk to the schools, hold a joint scouting night there, do press releases, go out to the soccer fields, the baseball fields, the football fields, pass out the peer-to-peer cards, whatever it may be. We have a lot of resources to do recruiting youth. And that's, again, the part where we need to talk to the charter organization, to talk to those leaders, those trained leaders, and figure out what is the best method for their organization to recruit youth. Do they have youth a part of their organization? Are they partnered with somebody? I know some of our service organizations are partnered with the school, and they give out backpacks or books to the school. Can we put a flyer inside those backpacks, in those books, whatever it may be? So there's no end to what we can do for recruitment. It's just working with the charter organization, working with those leaders to figure out the best method in that community to recruit youth. And on this topic, recruiting youth, I know Steve Small showed some statistics earlier. I do want to tell a positive story, good news story. One is, in about 5 years, we're going to have a new pack at Henson or in Sharptown between me, Ryan, and Craig. We got 5 boys right there, so there's a new unit for you. But also, I have 2 nephews in Georgia, One of them is 12 years old. One is 14 years old. Never been in Scouts before. Always talked about it ever since they've got to know me. It's my wife's nephews. But they weren't in Scouting. Always talked about joining. Always asked me every single year, asked me for where the local pack was, where the local troop was, but never ended up joining. Finally, their mother decided that she was going to take them to a troop meeting, and they were kicking and screaming. Again, they're 12 and 14 years old. Scouting was not on the top of their mind. They wanted to play baseball. They wanted to do other things, and she took them to a scout meeting, and it was the first meeting this troop has had since COVID started. So it was the first time they were meeting back in person. And they sat there and they were planning their camp out. They were going camping that weekend. They met on a Tuesday night, and they were planning their camp out for Saturday night. And these two nephews just fell in love with it. First time they've ever been camping without their family around, without their grandparents or mom around. Went out with a brand new group of boys that they never met before to go camping for a weekend. And now they are in love with it. They actually FaceTimed me the other night to show me their brand new uniforms they got, the patches that they earned. It was just, they were so happy about it. And that filled me up with joy, because that tells me kids want this program. They may not know they want it, but once they get involved, they want to be a part of it. They enjoy it, and you can get so much out of it. So recruiting youth is going to be one of the longer steps, but at the same time, if we plan the program right, kids want to be a part of this, and they want to continue on with it. So that's just my personal story. But moving on, so like I said, the first 90% is going to take as much time as the last 10%, as we all know, with completing the paperwork. This is the step that should be the easiest. Paperwork is not that hard, but it's just chasing it down. As we know from doing recharters every year, as we know from any other time that we're being asked for paperwork ourselves, whether it's for scouting or not for scouting, it just seems like something always falls through the cracks, and we have to go back and get it. So as we're going through the steps, once you get the annual charter agreement signed, try and go ahead and get the new unit application filled out at the same time, and have a folder or whatever you need to keep this paperwork together, so you don't misplace it, you don't lose it. Turn it into your local district executive, give it to us at the office, whatever it may be. That way, as we're going through the steps, as we're getting those adult applications, or as we're recruiting the adults, I mean, the first step needs to be fill out this adult application and take youth protection training, or take all your training. But once you complete youth protection, or all of it, whatever it may be, please send us those certifications. That way we can see that you have been trained. So on the adult application, we all know the criminal background check form. The newest one needs to be signed. The newest one has the box in the middle. That's the easiest way to tell it's the newest. Make sure that you're getting those adult applications. If you're getting them all at the same time, if you recruited all the leaders at the same time, it shouldn't be hard to get the charter organization, the COR, chartered org rep, to sign those adult applications. As well as once you recruit the youth, again, that should be one of the first things the youth do, or the families do, is fill out the youth application and get it signed by the unit leader, and then payment as well. And the fees are prorated throughout the year. When it comes to starting a new unit, you cannot charter for less than 6 months or more than 18 months. So what I mean by that is our charters end on December. So if you're starting a unit in July or August, you can't charter for less than 6 months. So you'll have to charter for all of next year. So if you're starting in August of 2021, you have to charter all the way through December of 2022. If your charter starts right now in April, you can charter only till the end of December. You can't go for more than 18 months. So you can't go through till 2022. You can only go till December 31st of 2021. That can get confusing, so if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I'm here for. But again, completing the paperwork is is what takes a lot of time if you didn't prepare for it from the beginning. So as you're going through, start with the end in mind. The end is getting this all the paperwork turned in, because that is what puts the makes a new unit posted, gets it on the books. That's where they can start getting their advancement, start being covered under our liability insurance, all that good stuff, is once that paperwork is turned in. And as well as once the paperwork is turned in, they will get a welcome phone call. That is one of the things that we do as a local council. Is every new unit that starts will get a welcome phone call from myself, from Ray, from Robert, welcoming them to Delmarva Council and to the Boy Scouts of America. Next step, once they complete the paperwork, step 11 will skip. Step 11 is hold the first meeting. So again, nothing really to do there, just making sure that the first meeting is held. If you can, please go to the first meeting, show your support for the unit. You want to make sure that the leaders know that you're still there to support them. You weren't just pressuring them through or forcing them through the first 10 steps, so that way you can leave. Make sure you're actually following up with them. So that step 12 is follow up. Present them with their charter, present them with their membership cards. You do have to print those off now, but make sure you're still talking to those leaders, because that is the best practice is for a new unit commissioner to stick with a new unit for 3 years. So they have that constant person that they can continuously reach out to with questions, and it builds goodwill, builds fellowship, and it's again, just a best practice for when starting a new unit. So yeah, sorry, step 11 is hold the first meeting, and then step 12 is follow up. And again, step 11 and 12 are not the hardest, but at the same time, follow up doesn't mean just follow up once. Follow up in 3 months, 6 months. Give them a call, thank them. Make sure you're writing thank you notes through this process as well. As soon as the charter organization adopts the program, write a thank you note to the person, or even if they don't adopt it, when you make the sales call, once you leave from making the sales call, send the people that you met with a thank you note. As you're recruiting new leaders, if the person you recruited, when you sit down, send a thank you note to the person that you recruited, as well as their spouse, because we know that being a scoutmaster or committee chair or whatever the position is going to take some time. And if it's not the whole family's coming out and doing scouting, make sure you write a thank you note to the spouse as well. It does go a long way. So does anybody have any questions? All right, so 7 o'clock, so I need to, one thing I will show, this is a unit roadmap. This is something that I found on the national office. It goes through all these 12 steps as well. So if you want to look at a brochure, you can look at this brochure. It will take you through all the unit roadmap of how to start, sustain, and grow new units. So there's the unit roadmap. So please feel free to take a look at that. We have created some internal documents. So if you need internal documents, please let us know. I will also, one thing I need to do right before we leave, give me 1 second to pull this up. As Robert talked about, we do have that event coming up on Monday. So real quick, before we get into that, does anybody have any questions about anything? Any comments? Is there anything that I missed that needs to be brought up? Please don't hesitate to reach out now. All right. If not, then the last thing I'm going to share with everybody, I'm going to stop the recording because this is going to talk about the event on Monday, and this training is meant to be just about new units. So stop.